Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to go through some books that I have gotten recently. A lot of you know that basically every time I do a book haul, and I'm pretty much on repeat, that I always shout out my local bookstores, as that is primarily where I get a lot of my books. I think this might be the first time that I can think of where I didn't get anything from my local bookstores. I still want to mention them though, Changing Hands and Bookman's, as I do really love them and they deserve to get recognition even though I didn't purchase anything from them recently. The reason being, when my husband and I have gone in and gotten store credit, we've just kind of been saving it. We haven't been, or sometimes Sean's been getting stuff and I'm like, no, I don't need anything, because I've been really using the library a lot, and a lot of the books that I pick up, I wait and see if I can find them used, because sometimes my local bookstores, they actually will have new editions in, and I'm like, I'll wait and see if there's a used copy. So I've been pretty diligent about not actually buying things with our store credit. That does mean I don't have anything from Bookman's and Changing Hands this time, but I'll have those bookstores linked. I also like to always remember to inform you all, if you don't know, that the bookshop.org website, which is often connected to indie bookstores, local bookstores, you can actually, if you don't have one that you know of, you can have it set to Changing Hands specifically, so you can help that store. They're great. If you're ever in Arizona, check out one or both of those. They have different locations. So anyway, wanted to shout them out. That doesn't mean that some of the stuff that I got isn't still used though, and that's true for the first book on this list, which would be, I always get so excited, the Bartimaeus Trilogy's first book, The Amulet of Samarkand. So I have mentioned here and there this series. It's one that I read when I was a lot younger. It sort of borders middle grade and young adult. I actually have seen it sold in both spots before, and this was one of my favorite series when I was younger. I desperately need to do a reread at some point. The ending, I always think of this ending. It still sits with me. It was really gripping. It was really hard hitting, and it was one of the first times, I think, as a kid that I realized that books could end like that. That's not totally true. I've read some pretty terribly depressing things as a little kid. One of my favorite books, I've told this story before, is about this little baby horse that falls off the side of a cliff by a waterfall, and then it's just looking up at its mom and other wild horses that were a part of its little family. And this, I think it's a Pegasus, comes over and it's like, you have to come with me now. And totally a metaphor for this little baby horse dying and then maybe going to heaven. And my mom thought it was terribly depressing and was always like, why do you like this book? Because my mom's really sweet. She doesn't like sad things. Anyway, point is, chapter books, like the ones for the older kids. I'd not really experienced one that ended quite like this one had. It's a fantastic ending. The setup for this series is that you follow this djinn that has been summoned in book one by this young boy, and this young boy wants to get back at his really mean mentor, who's not really very kind, doesn't really treat people very well. And the djinn is always trying to get free, and the djinn is hoping that, Bartimaeus is his name, the djinn is hoping that Nathaniel, the human boy, will make a mistake and then he can have his freedom. So the boy's like, no, and he's actually really good at what he does, and throughout the trilogy, the boy gets older. So you see him as this sort of endearing, sweet little boy in the first one, and then he's kind of pompous and arrogant as the series progresses, and then you're sort of seeing him come into his own and become a better person, and Bartimaeus kind of begrudgingly likes him and hates him, and then likes him and then hates him, and I really loved their dynamic, and the way in which the magic was written was great. Anyway, this isn't a book review or a wrap-up. It's just I don't really see this talked about very much, so I wanted to mention it in case you didn't know. But anyway, I have looked for so long for this specific hardback because I have the second and third ones, but the first one I can only ever find in paperback. I've tried buying it used online, and I had one that I thought was right, but then it was actually a different copy. And so I really have been looking for this one for so long, and I actually got it on Pango. So if you've never used Pango before, Pango is fantastic. I believe it's just US currently, but hopefully someday they'll expand. And really quick, I want to shout out the seller because one, when I got the book, it was wrapped which was so sweet and cute, and I really appreciate them taking the time to do that. I don't just mean like bubble wrapped, I mean like it was wrapped. It was really nice. It was like opening a present. But also they messaged me because they did have the second and third ones. So they had messaged me and they were like, hey, just so you know, I have the second and third ones also if you're looking for them, which I thought was also really sweet. I didn't need those. I was just looking for the first, but I'm gonna see if I can leave their shop in the description bar because I just think they were great, and if they have some books that you're looking for, I would highly recommend buying from that seller because they were wonderful. They did a great job. And now I have my book, finally, yay. The next few books are books that I got from my friend Jashana. She has her own channel. She's one of my best friends in real life. She's a really funny person. She's a really lovely person, a great person, and you should check out her channel. You should check out her channel. She reads a lot of fantasy, but she reads quite broadly, and she reads a lot of things I feel like a lot of other people don't talk about as much. So if you're looking for some recommendations that are a little outside of what maybe you usually get within a certain kind of fantasy bubble that we have on BookTube, I think she is really great at providing a lot of recommendations. And she's always gonna tell you her thoughts in a way that is both entertaining and extremely honest. And anyway, she's just great. I love her so much. So definitely check out Jashana's channel. But anyway, the point is that I was over at her house recently because we live in the same state. And she was going to take some things into one of our local bookstores. And she was like, oh, hey, if there's anything that you want, I mean, I'm going to take them in. And I was like, are you sure? Because, you know, you might get less store credit. She's like, yeah, no, it's fine. So I got a few things from her. So there's a trilogy that she really liked, but she just doesn't see herself rereading. And I don't know a whole lot about it. I've seen it. This is what this trilogy looks like. They have really cool covers. And I don't really know anything about them. I have seen them at my local bookstores before, but it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I mean, I have so many other books and I don't want to spend money on a series when I don't know if I'm going to like it. Maybe I'll check it out from the library one of these days. It was just kind of that rhetoric going through my head every time I see them. But because Jashana, 1, really enjoyed it, and 2, was just gonna take it in, I was like, I mean, if you don't mind, so I have this, and then I hope to get to it at some point. I don't know that it'll be this year, but it would be great if I could at least try to start it this year. And now if I do really enjoy that first one, I have the whole trilogy, which is great. She also gave me, I have the first book in the series by Tasha Suri. I just don't have the second one, so it's one of those things where if I read and like, the same thing I just said, basically, if I read and like the first one, then now I have the second one available to me. I know that she really, really liked the first one in this series quite a bit. Jashana is, I think this is the case with this series, but even if it's not, she's done this before, where she very interestingly, if she doesn't like a book in a series, but she likes other books in the series, or she likes the rest of the series, she'll get rid of that one book in the series she doesn't like. There are books in series sometimes where I'm like, I really didn't like that middle one, but the third one was great. And it would definitely save space if I adopted that decision making, that mentality, but I just can't break up series like that. Anyway, she also gave me Last Night at the Telegraph Club. I don't know a whole lot about this one either. I think Jashana also liked this one, but it was another situation where she just didn't really see herself rereading it. So I hope I like it. It seems to have been pretty well respected and won a lot of awards, so hopefully I enjoy this one also. She gave me some comics as well. If I do a comics manga haul sometime over on my side channel, I'll feature those there, but those are the books that she gave me. Next up, we have some of the Murderbot diaries. So one of the things that I was doing all last year was when I would get things from my library, which I did. I got all of Murderbot from my library, is if I really enjoyed it, I would write it down and have it in my mind for if I see this used or if I see this on sale, then I'll go ahead and get it. I was also really hoping Barnes & Noble at the end of the year would have their half off hardback sale, and they did. And I found, that's why I don't have the whole series, is I found these particular ones. If you're curious, the ones I got would be Rogue Protocol, Artificial Condition, Fugitive Telemetry, and then Exit Strategy. So I have 4 of the Murderbot diaries. A lot of you know I mentioned multiple times last year, these were some of my favorites, and I really, really enjoyed my reading experience. I actually did a wrap-up recently where I talked about the full-length novel, and Interestingly enough, the full-length one is, I think, my favorite, even though it seems to be other people's least favorite or not. It just feels like it's never a person's favorite in the series, but I loved it. So I will be excited to eventually look for those other ones too. And I'm all caught up on the series. I'm a little sad because I think it's going to be a while before we get more, but I'm pretty sure we will get more. And so I'm just eagerly awaiting when we get more Murderbot. Next up, I am so excited to have finally gotten my hands on these. I have been looking and looking and looking, and I didn't even realize when I got them that they were technically the even better editions. So, a lot of you know that Shadow of the Gods and Hunger of the Gods are really difficult to find in hardback. They only, I think, came out in hardback through UK retailers, and then once they sold out, they were done. You don't have any more being printed. And there were some retailers that made them with sprayed edges. There were some that just had them as hardback. And I found the second one. It's up there. I found the second one in hardback for a pretty reasonable price. And I was like, okay, so now I just need the first one. And the first one, it's basically impossible to find. And two, if you do find it, it's outrageously expensive. I think the cheapest I've seen it for is $300 for just the regular hardback. There's nothing fancy about it. And I was like, ugh, I'm not spending $300 on this book. So I've just kind of waited to see, if anybody's selling it on one of the buy-sell trade groups or on Pango or anything like that. Somebody was selling both Shadow of the Gods and Hunger of the Gods for cheaper than what I typically see for just Shadow of the Gods. And I was like, what? So what I'm going to do is I have the one that doesn't have sprayed edges. I'm probably going to sell it on Pango if anybody is interested. Because like I said, it was cheaper. Luna's excited about something. It was cheaper to get this as a set. That's all I was getting at. And especially because then I would have them as matching editions. I don't know if the third one, when it does come out, if they will also, not the person I bought it from, but if, I think it was the Broken Binding that might have sold these ones. I don't know if they're going to do the third one with sprayed edges also, but man, if they do, I'm going to make sure that I get it so that it does not, one, take forever to find it, and two, I don't have to scour the internet through people with their really absurd upselling. And then last for today would be this edition of Bonesmith. A lot of you know I really, really enjoyed Bonesmith when I picked it up last year, and I believe this is the Bookish box edition. Typically the Bookish box does more romantic-y books. So I did not, yes, Bookish box exclusive luxe edition. I didn't know that this one was even something they were selling until after they'd already sold out, and I was like, dang it. And I thought that not only is this cover a lot of fun, they have sprayed edges, which is pretty standard for a lot of special editions, but I really liked what they did with the naked hardback. So you actually see the same imagery on the naked hardback, it's just without the text, and I think that looks so awesome. I think it looks fantastic. And they do have some artwork on the inside, as well as it is signed by Nikki Palpretto. And sorry if you hear a siren. I mean, I'm more sorry for hopefully whoever the vehicle is for is okay. But if you hear that, I apologize. But anyway, getting back to this, they also have, if you want, you can reverse the dust jacket, and then you have this. And they really do, if you've ever seen something from them but you've never actually purchased from the Bookish box and you're not sure, if you've ever seen something you're interested in, I would say give it a go, because I've been really happy with the editions that I have bought from them. For example, I have the Bridge Kingdom books by them, and I think they did that set quite well. The only downside is that, and that wasn't true for this one I don't believe, but some of their special editions take a really long time before they get to you. I don't even think it's shipping. I think it has to do with production, to a point where there have been times, I haven't gotten that many editions from them, but I think it happened with the Bridge Kingdom where I bought it and then I'm like, did I buy it? Because it took so long before it arrived. So just a heads up about that if you do choose to check this out. I don't think it's quite as big as a lot of the other book box companies that are out there, but they do, I think, make very high quality books. So happy to have this. I hope that they do the sequel, and I hope I can get my hands on it. That's it though for some books that I've gotten recently. Nothing too intense. And let me know if you've read some of these, what your thoughts are. Did you love Bartimaeus when you were younger? I think I've seen some of you before when I've mentioned it. Get really excited whenever you see it. But thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.